Well, hello everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? So I hope fantastic. This is Dr. Chris Cox. I'm going to be leading the lecture this evening, the 40-day transformation. It's never too late to get in shape, and the first part of the year is a great time to do that. So if everybody would do me a favor, if you can find your group chat box, I want to make sure everybody can hear me. So if it's possible, to just go ahead and type in there that, hey, I can hear you, that we don't have a problem with sound. If somebody can do that, or everybody can kind of chime in real quick. That way I'm not lecturing to myself for the next 30 to 45 minutes. Awesome. Thank you, Trina. I got your message, so excellent. Hopefully everybody else can. Wonderful. Perfect. All right, so thank you for joining me this evening. We've got some really cool stuff to talk about. So the 40-day transformation is a really, really, really great program. And we're going to kind of talk about how to do it and all the things I've learned and all that kind of, well, not everything I've learned, but we're gonna talk about a lot of stuff and kind of just cut to the chase, so to speak, and get down to what it really means to lose weight and why people struggle, and then actually provide some answers. So at the end of the webinar tonight, you'll actually have an opportunity to come in and take advantage of an assessment and stuff like that we do for people. So let's go ahead and get going. Make sure I've got, there we go. So as I kind of mentioned, my name is Dr. Chris Cox, and I've been working with nutrition and health and well-being for over 25 years. And so some of you know who I am. Many of you that are on the webinar do not. And I myself have actually had lots and lots of ups and downs. So this image that's there was taken a few years ago, and as I was completing an Ironman triathlon. And what this picture doesn't show is the 70 pounds of body fat that I used to carry. So I've had a lot of ups and downs relative to weight over the years. And so I've had my struggles, there's no question about it. So I know what the challenges are and can be, and have learned from those experiences, not only personally, but after working with people for 25 years and helping people, thousands of people really regain lost health and find lifetime solutions. It's part of why I love what I do, because there's a lot of compassion and empathy for people who struggle in this category. I know that, I understand that. I'm also a husband, so I have a spouse. My wife Jennifer is fantastic, so I'm very, very lucky man. And I'm a father to 4 teenagers, so I know what it's like to deal with nutrition stuff in a family and with kids, and how to figure all that out. You know, it's like, do we just cook 6 different meals, or how do you get people all on the same page? So some very real world stuff that can be really challenging. Our metabolic team here at the office at Lifeline Wellness Center, we've actually collectively lost over 275 pounds. So we have a lot of experience with the challenges that come along with weight, carrying extra weight, and not just from a physical aspect, but from the mental emotional perspective too. So so tonight's lecture is really built on really thousands of patient interactions, years of experience, and personal kind of story and experience as well. So so as we kind of get going, the next thing I want to talk about is just imagine living the next 70, 80, 90 years of quality life, right? So the type of life that most people really dream of, and it usually is healthy, it's vital, it's high energy, they're active, maybe travel, raising healthy kids, maybe playing with grandkids, stuff like that. And then the quality of life, right? Being able to retire comfortably, enjoy vacations, hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, what about not having, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars of medical debt, which is very common in the US? So the first question to ask yourself is just simply, do you think that life is possible, right? Do you think that you're worthy of that life? You know, having worked with people relative to weight loss for years, I can tell you that often there's a belief system in place that we struggle with, that we're not worthy, or we're not, we don't take care of ourselves first. And often we put ourselves in situations where we can choose foods and choose activities that aren't necessarily the best for our health. So sometimes we have to really access and evaluate our internal mindset as we go through this. So it isn't just about looking at food and metabolism and all that kind of stuff, as we'll talk about a little bit later, but we've got to think of our mindset too. And then the last kind of thing to really consider is, are you making the necessary investments in your health and resources to get you there? Right? I think it's an Asian, at least, adage of, when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, it's 10 years ago. When's the second best time? Well, it's right now. Right? We can't expect to have a great quality of life in our 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. If we don't actually start making some of those investments in our health right now. That's what's necessary. I can't tell you the number of conversations I have with people that say, I wish someone had told me earlier, or I wish I had known this a decade ago, or I wish I'd made these changes 2 decades ago. And sometimes there does come a point of finality that it is too late. So most often people forget that their health is their most valuable resource. It is really critical that we take care of it. And if we don't have that resource, nothing else really matters, right? If it's on a much smaller scale, when we're sick or ever have a cold or the flu, what becomes our only priority at that point? Well, it's getting better, right? Our quality of life sucks, pardon the French, but the reality is that we spend all our time and focus trying to feel better, right? So it's a critical thing to understand, is that our quality of life is directly connected to our degree of health. So making sure that you're making the time, energy, and emotional investments to actually make sure that your health is great, really, really important. So in order to realize these dreams, though, we must answer one simple question, right? And it's that, what's your greatest asset? And we just talked about that. It's your health, right? And tonight we're gonna speak very frankly about weight and the effects and all that kind of stuff. So we get a really clear picture of what we're dealing with, and then provide some very specific solutions. So my phrasing, the language or the words that I choose are not meant to be harmful or hurtful in any way. They're meant to be very direct, and let's just get to the point. We've got a problem and we need to figure out a way to solve it. So I'm not trying to be harsher or anything. I just want to make sure that we talk about facts. All right. So a few key questions I want to discuss over the next few minutes. So number one, if we just do what everybody else is doing, what do we get, right? Well, exactly what they already have, right? So it's that definition of insanity. We keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. It's just not going to happen. So when you look at all the countries in the world, where do you think the U.S. ranks regarding our overall health and well-being? Well, we actually rank 37th out of 39 industrialized countries, right? It's pretty significant that it's that bad, right? So where do you think the US ranks in regard to the spending on healthcare, right? Well, we actually spend more than the top 16 countries combined, right? So just these statistics alone tell us that if we're spending the absolute most, and not just by a little bit, by a lot, right? But our overall health and well-being is ranked at 37 out of 39 industrialized countries. Well, most people can't even name 36 other countries, right? So what we're doing right now isn't working, which is exactly the definition of insanity. It's not about finding a new weight loss drug. It's not about finding a new medication. It's not about a new widget that we've got to try or something like that, right? The whole system that we're doing, how we're operating, isn't working. We've got to think about weight loss and health from a different perspective. So what about drug consumption, right? Well, we actually take more drugs than all the other countries combined, right? We actually take 75% of all the drugs in the world, right? Yet we only actually make up 4% of the population, right? So it's crazy how much medications and how connected we are to medications and drugs in the US. So again, we've got to start to look in a different direction rather than, the next weight loss pill or medication that comes out. We already have proved that that system doesn't work. How much more money do we need to throw down the hole to realize that this isn't the right answer, right? So a few more questions, right? So if being healthy is the primary goal, right, shouldn't we actually know what health is? Right? Well, most often I find people define that as is how they feel or how they look, right? Having worked with people for 25 years now, I can tell you that these ways to, or yardsticks to determine whether a person is healthy are very, very, very poor. I see people almost every day that look really healthy, right? Fit, right? Low body fat, nice tan skin, all that kind of stuff. And they're some of the most unhealthy people that I've seen. So you can't judge a book by its cover, so to speak. And the same thing with determining our health based on how we feel, right? If we want to use feeling as an example here, if our objective was just to feel better, right? If that's what health was, well, we could handle everybody's health issue with morphine then, because morphine makes you feel amazing in a matter of just a few minutes. So, but we know that's not actually making somebody healthy, right? It's just covering up the symptoms. So we want to start to really define what health really is. So if you look, if how you look or feel is a good measure of health, right? The reality is the top 3 killers in our country are silent killers, right? What does cancer feel like growing? Right? We don't feel that. Sometimes people have cancer for over a decade before they start to get symptoms, right? How about heart disease, right? The number one symptom, the first symptom that people often feel with heart disease is a heart attack, right? And we know that their heart wasn't functioning perfectly on Friday. They went out Friday night, they had a big old cheeseburger, and they had a heart attack on Saturday. That's not how it works, right? That heart has been dysfunctioning. The cardiovascular system's been dysfunctioning for years in many cases. And again, what does diabetes feel like as it progresses, right? So you don't just go from, oh, my blood sugar is great, this day, and the next day it's bad. No, it's a very progressive disease. So, and often there aren't any symptoms until it progresses. So as the next point here says, disease is a process, and often are very slow, and often do not create symptoms until they have progressed far enough to produce a health crisis. So the World Health Organization defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Not in one place there do they state it's dependent upon you feeling good, right? So it's intentional that how you feel based on your health is left out of that definition, right? So, for example, I'm sure at least somebody here has probably had food poisoning before. I've had it, and it feels awful. It's horrible. However, it is the perfect body response, right? That's a healthy response. If you've eaten something toxic, your body's telling you to get rid of it, get it out of my body, right? So there's a reason, like I said, that the definition of health does not include how we feel, right? Or for that matter, how we look, right? So these are important concepts to really consider when we start to look at dealing with health and weight loss and body composition and stuff like that. So the state of health in the U.S., most of these people are on the verge of what's called metabolic syndrome. Now, maybe some of you have heard of metabolic syndrome. It's becoming much more prevalent. And some of these are really, really staggering, right? 80% of the spending on healthcare in the U.S. is due to chronic diseases like heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, right? Most of these people with diabetes, cancer, and heart disease are on the verge of this metabolic syndrome, right? 50% of the deaths in the U.S. are due to cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, 50%, right? And is any of that preventable? Well, absolutely, right? So one of the things I like to address at this point is the role of genetics. People will tend to talk about how, it's in my family to carry extra body fat and stuff like that. And the reality is that's just simply not true. how genetics actually work, or probably a better way to describe it is how they don't work, is you don't actually get to a certain age and then something happens, right? You're not gonna, because of genes, you're not gonna get to 50 years old and get prostate cancer or get breast cancer or whatever it might be. How genes work is you may have a genetic predisposition for a very specific or particular type of physiology to occur in your body. But unless the environment exists in a way to actually trigger the expression of that gene is never turned on. Right? So the environment has to exist, which means nutrition and exercise and stress and all that kind of stuff. Those factors have to be in a significant amount for a long enough period of time to trigger the particular gene. So what's also really cool is that on your DNA, you actually have these little repair molecules that kind of slide along the DNA strand, and they recognize when genes are not normal, and they actually turn them off, right? However, if the environment still exists, right, well, then the gene just gets to turn back on again, and it continues to be expressed. So here's the cool thing, right? If you change the environment, right, if you reduce the stressors in your environment, the genetic actually, genetic trigger actually turns off and stays off. So we've all maybe heard of people, maybe even know some of these people. We see them in the office on a regular basis that have a particular disease process, and they start to change the environment in which they live in and in which they choose, and all of a sudden the disease process stops, and a lot of times it actually reverses. So really, really key thing is don't get locked into the idea that oh, these are my genes and I'm stuck with it, because it's just simply not true. You have a lot of control of your genes and your environment and their expression, right? The number one cause of bankruptcy is medical debt, right? And of those cases, almost 80% of them were actually insured, right? So it's horribly expensive to get sick. Right? It is way, way, way less expensive to stay healthy. I read an article, they were talking about you can pay now or you pay later, right? It's bottom line, right? You can pay now to keep yourself healthy by eating great food, taking care of yourself with chiropractic care or whatever it is, right? Or you're going to pay later. That's the bottom line, right? But if you pay now, if you pay early, right, you get a great quality of life, right? There's a huge benefit to spending the time and resources to make sure that you stay healthy along the road. So these disease processes are all pieces of this category of disease, which is called metabolic syndrome, that's starting to show in the US and become more and more and more prevalent over the last decade or so. So here's kind of a slide on metabolic syndrome with some chemical reactions and all that kind of stuff. But we're actually going to talk about kind of its effects and how to identify it and stuff like that. It can be pretty complex when we get into all the little minutia, which is not what tonight is really about. I just want to make sure that you're understanding metabolic syndrome and why we call it such an epidemic that's actually occurring. And then what you actually do about it to make sure that you don't end up in that category, and you make sure that your family doesn't end up in that category. So, so what really is metabolic syndrome? Well, metabolic syndrome is a name that's applied to a group of risk factors that occur together and increase the chance of coronary artery disease, stroke, cancers, and type 2 diabetes, right? So, so when we see things like heart disease, right? Lipid problems, which is like cholesterol issues. So that's either high bad cholesterol or an imbalance in the ratio of good to bad. Hypertension or high blood pressure, having type 2 diabetes, dementia, cancer, ovarian syndrome, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease are all the factors that are often associated with metabolic syndrome. So it doesn't have to be all of those, but those are the most common ones that start to show up. So it's easier if we look at how we develop the risk factors, though, that's more important, right? So metabolic syndrome was actually identified less than 20 years ago. And it's actually as widespread as pimples in the common cold, right? So nearly 1 out of 6 people actually have it. And literally the majority of Americans are actually on their way. It's actually been reported that 40% of Americans over 50 years old have it. And there's no question that number in that study is actually lower than the actual true statistics. So there's some statistical error in there. So it's becoming hugely popular. While metabolic syndrome is not actually classified as a disease, right? It actually describes the risk factors that cause diseases, right? So like we talked about, cancers, heart disease, diabetes, liver disease, reduced quality of life, and premature death. Well, the primary risk factors for metabolic syndrome are this: being overweight or having a large waist size, right? High triglycerides, low HDLs, which is the good cholesterol, hypertension or high blood pressure, right? And then blood sugar problems. So those are the most common ones that contribute to this statistic of metabolic syndrome. And are some of the most common things that are occurring in the US. So I think most of you probably know people that if don't have all 5 of those characteristics, that at least have most of them. So why do these risk factors actually develop? Well, it's not your genetics, right? As I mentioned before, this is not about your genes. It is simply unhealthy lifestyle factors that cause the obesity, the insulin resistance, and hormonal imbalances, right? It's not, I've got bad genes. No, it's the lifestyle choices that we're making, not just one day, but consistently, that contribute to these risk factors that start to develop the effects of metabolic syndrome. Well, one of the things that I came up with a number of years ago is this theory of, or not theory, but kind of I guess a story, because I see it literally every day in practice, is the black hole that people get caught up in. And I used to kind of dance around the subject a little bit because it's a little not necessarily confrontational, but it's very real. And I found that the benefit of knowing or understanding the black hole process is critical, as it's very predictable for people. So here's kind of how the black hole begins, right? So when we're fed up with feeling a certain way and go to the doctor, how typically does the medical community measure health? Well, many of us kind of get some yearly blood work, right? We get a CBC, stuff like that. And there's no question these measurements can be really great, right? But what's done with them is part of the reason we're actually so sick. So we'll use this example. Let's just say a 30-year-old gets tested with elevated blood sugar. And then the question is, what is done? Right? Well, most often, if there is any really helpful, nutritional information, which is debatable at that point, they actually end up giving you medications to lower your blood sugar. Now, this is important, right? Because high blood sugar is actually very dangerous, but it doesn't actually get to the cause, right? So what's the cause of blood sugar issues, right? Of high blood sugar, right? Well, it's lifestyle. It's diet and exercise. The reason the blood sugar is high in 99% of the cases is due to diet and exercise, right? Well, so if we kind of now move along here, right? So we control this person's blood sugar with medications. So what happens over the next 5 years? Well, is this person healthier or sicker? Are they on the same meds 5 years down the road? Well, I can tell you almost always that is not the case. Almost always they're taking more medications and are usually now complaining of being exhausted, a symptom that they were not experiencing 5 years ago. So now, simply put, they're on more meds and diagnosed with hypothyroid. The liver converts what's called T3 to, or inactive thyroid to active thyroid. This is all kind of biochemistry that isn't necessarily specifically relevant at this point, but basically what ends up happening is it starts to affect the liver, because the liver also produces cholesterol. When it becomes insulin resistant, which means resistant to sugar, it changes your lipid profile, which is good and bad cholesterol, right? So what it does is it increases the bad cholesterol and triglycerides, and decreases the good cholesterol, the good ones, right? So how does your doctor fix this after your blood tests? Well, you guys guessed it. There's no question, right? They give you more medications to override the physiology and force your blood levels within their normal ranges, right? So here's the concept. You cannot medicate yourself to better health. It doesn't work that way. Your body is designed to function perfectly without drugs and surgery. That's its natural normal state, right? So, so just because we can medicate a blood test into a normal range doesn't mean we've actually regained health, right? That's not the same thing, right? So I hope you get that that's really critical. Just because your blood levels are in the normal ranges and you're taking 4 medications to do that, that doesn't mean you're healthy, right? It means you've just got you've got medicated blood, right? So, but again, what's the cause of the problem all along, right? It all comes back to lifestyle, right? The longer we stay in this type of dysfunctional metabolism and we continue to treat blood tests, we're further driving your physiology into a metabolic black hole, right? So fast forward, now this 30-year-old is now 50, right? You're now in such a deep hole that you can medicate through the symptoms, but your body has just simply stopped working properly, right? And I see this every day, right? That this is just the road that everybody goes down, right? So we're looking for an answer, right? We don't know what to do about it. We're told that our blood tests are out of normal ranges, and oh, we've got this new medication that can actually bring your blood levels into normal ranges, and it's got less side effects or different side effects than the last one. And we just start this cycle, right? And it doesn't happen overnight, right? It happens over months and years, but eventually we end up in this place where we're so medicated and so unhealthy that our body's just unable and incapable of functioning properly, right? So the reality check is this, right? So for those of you that think you're just fine, right, and are in great shape because you're prescribed meds to control your type 2 diabetes or cholesterol meds or high blood sugar meds or whatever it might be, you're simply deteriorating into a metabolic black hole, right? That's just the reality of it. It affects 40% of people over 50 years old. And this person has a cancer risk now that's also 4 to 5 times higher than others, right? So it's an important concept to understand that we're not, by not addressing the foundational issue to begin with, we start this whole process of dysfunction. We've got to just stop that from happening, right? So the cost of having metabolic syndrome, the average cost per patient with metabolic syndrome is over $4,000 direct out-of-pocket expenses from like copays, and that's insured, right? Every year, right? So it's 4.2 times the average spent on the same age group, right? Or the people that don't have metabolic syndrome. So overall, basically 4 out of every $10 spent is spent on prescription drugs for adults on treating this metabolic syndrome. So we talked about before, pay now or pay later, right? Those expenses are coming if we don't take care of ourselves. So this one is shocking, right? The New England Journal of Medicine, now this study came out about 3 years ago. They came out and said that today's kids will likely be the first generation to live shorter than their parents. 40% of our kids are overweight, right? And this has absolutely nothing to do other than lifestyle choices. It is that simple, right? Our kids are actually going to live a shorter lifespan than us because of our lifestyle, right? Shocking. A study from a publication called The Lancet talked about how diabetes may shorten life expectancy by 8 years, right? So you can see the little graph on the left-hand side here of the screen. If your body mass index is between 25 and 30, you can reduce your life by 3 years, 30 to 35 by 6 years, and 35 plus by 8 years. Now, here's the kind of the amazing thing about this is that this is like, it's true. However, I mean, for some people, that's years down the road. It's like, I'll live extra during these years, so I don't need those extra 3 years or 8 years or whatever it might be. But here's what you miss out on is that your quality of life isn't great until those last 3 years. It's like your quality of life sucks, right? And then you die early, right? So the idea is that when you make these different choices, you actually get to enjoy the quality of life for a much longer duration. So it's just the additional effect is you also shorten your lifespan, right? So as a culture, we're absolutely killing ourselves prematurely, and we have control over that. We can actually make a different choice moving forward. So it's no secret that to anyone in America, that we're actually getting fatter, right? I mean, I think that's common knowledge at this point. When we look at the trends, it's shocking. Now, this last study was done, well, on this, at least the graph that I have now. They've actually added additional categories. But if you look at the top left in 1991, you can see that the majority of the U.S. was either less than 10% or between 10 and 15% of the country was overweight. But in simply a 5-year time span, we had to add another category. And then another 5 years, we actually had to have another category. And then by 2010, we actually had to add 2 more categories, right? So we had states in a span of 20 years go from virtually no people that were, or very little data, under 10% that were overweight or obese, to over 30% of the population was overweight or obese. This is a 20-year time span. So if you needed any confirmation that genetics was a part of it, this chart shows you that, right? You cannot make a genetic change in the human race in 20 years, right? This is 100% lifestyle, right? Well, Tiny was even talking about it regarding metabolic syndrome and obesity and the problems that we've created relevant to that. The fact is that 72% of adults are overweight, and 40% of our children are overweight, right? So one thing I want to make really, really clear, right? Acceptance of our bodies is one thing, right? Our value as a human being is not dependent of our weight, right? It has nothing to do with that, right? But continuing to reduce the years in our lives because of unhealthy lifestyle habits leading to obesity, that has to be changed, right? This is a health issue, right? So it's critical for us to start to look at these issues and find some real solutions for them. Now, so this is causes of death within the last decade. And even though this study was done about 10 years ago, the data is identical today. So as it says, over 50% of the deaths in the US are from obesity-related chronic diseases, right? Diabetes, stroke, heart disease, and cancer. No question about it. The American Cancer Society talks about how an estimated 1 out of every 3 cancer deaths in the United States is linked to excess body weight, poor nutrition, and/or physical activity, right? These factors are all related and may all contribute to cancer risk, but body weight seems to have the strongest evidence linking it to cancer, right? So really, really important that our body composition is connected to the inflammatory process that exists in our body that can lead to significant increased risks for cancers. All right, so currently, as this slide talks about, more than 1/3 of the US adults are obese, right? And it talks about on the bottom there, for a 5-point increase in BMI, men will experience a 52% increase in esophageal cancer and a 24% increase in risk of colon cancer. And women, for the same 5-point increase in BMI, a 59% increase in endometrial and gallbladder cancer, and a 12% increase in postmenopausal breast cancer. So the effects are huge. So while I saw this slide and I first thought it was really, really entertaining, it's also pretty sad that you turn the US on its side and put Alaska in front of it. It looks like a person eating a burger. But the reality is this: we've created disease at a faster rate over the last 3 decades than any time in any other time in US history. And again, it's just simply due to the American lifestyle. And it's absolutely killing us. We've got to stop ignoring and making excuses for, well, you know, it's okay, it'll be all right, it's not going to affect my health and stuff like that. That's just not true, right? All right, so how do we change this epidemic and take control, right? So you are how you look, feel, and act today based on the decisions you've made about your health in the past, right? We go back to that definition of insanity, right? If we're not happy with where our health exists at this moment, the only thing we can really look at is our past, right? And if we keep operating and making the same decisions and doing the same thing that we've done for the last year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years or 20 years or 50 years, to think that we're actually going to get a different outcome isn't going to happen. You actually have to do something different, and you have to think about this differently, right? So we need actually a real solution, right? So the good news is simple. After working with people for 25 years and thousands of people, I have focused on trying to find real food, whole food solutions that actually solve problems for a lifetime. And that's part of what the Transform 40 program is based on. So we're going to kind of get into that and talk a little more detail about how this program is very different and how we have to deal with the issues at hand to get some success, right? So the next thing that I wanted to kind of bring up is a study. It's called the EPIC study, and it's actually a study of 23,000 people. So not sure how many people on the webinar tonight actually do a lot of reading and research, but 23,000 people in a research study is unbelievable. It's huge. So the data that's collected can be really, really reliable. So basically what they discovered was these simple things. The participants in this study, by not smoking, moderate exercise, right, with a healthy BMI, which is under 30, which is actually still technically too high, 25 or under is where it needs to be, and a healthy diet, they actually had these outcomes. 93% of type 2 diabetes was prevented. So I think you all probably agree, at least having lectured to the community enough over the last couple decades, most people get the idea that our healthcare system is very, very, very broken. And if we just eliminated number one, if we just eliminated type 2 diabetes, the weight of healthcare, the expense on healthcare relative to type 2 diabetes, that would transform our system, right? Well, not only that, but it would eliminate 81% of heart attacks, it would stop 50% of the strokes, and it would eliminate 36% of all cancers, right? So a massive, massive change. So, and again, these are simple behaviors, right? These are all lifestyle things. Well, if it really is this easy, then why are we not all healthy, right? Well, I've done this for a while now, and I've come to some conclusions, right? Well, number one, we don't make the choices that we know that we should make, right? I mean, all of you know that there's probably things you could do this very moment, right, that would probably benefit your health. The question is, well, why don't we do them, right? So we're not sure sometimes what to do when we do decide, right? There's a lot of confusion out there, right? The paralysis by analysis idea. The third thing, unhealthy choices are often easier and cheaper, right? It is way less expensive to go get a Happy Meal at McDonald's for $1.99 than it is to make a healthy organic green salad. You know, and part of that is, you know, funding for, you know, corn and soybeans and flour and stuff like that to bring down the cost. And the problem is that we're trying to make up an idea of calorie per dollar, right? The goal with nutrition is not to figure out how many calories can we get per dollar. It's actually, you want nutrients per dollar, right? How much fuel can I get for my body so it can heal and repair and function the way it's designed to? So sometimes we tend to take care of others before ourselves, right? I know there's probably some people on this call that have that issue, right? Oh no, it's okay. We'll you know, I'll deprive myself, or I'll wait, or nope, it's important to take care of my kids first, or something like that. Or number five, we don't have the support necessary to make the changes, right? It's tough when you're trying to do this by yourself, right? It takes other people or support to make some of these very, very, very challenging lifestyle changes. So in a clinically supervised process, however, people tend to get dramatically better life-changing results for a few reasons. One is where you can actually oversee the process and look at the overall health of the person. And there's the support mechanism behind this as well. Well, one of the first things you have to understand that it really is all about your metabolism, right? It isn't just about reducing calories and counting points and exercising more and all that kind of stuff. It's actually about the functionality of your metabolism. And in order for you to actually to lose body fat, right, you actually have to trigger your fat burning hormones. Right? So not just reducing or counting calories or points, right? You actually need to reset your metabolism. So I want to take a moment and describe just real basic, like how we gain and lose fat, okay? So it's when we have an excess of blood sugar, right? Our body actually stores that extra sugar in fat cells, right? So your fat cells don't actually, you don't get more fat cells or less fat cells when you gain or lose weight. Those fat cells actually just get bigger or smaller, right? So if you've got an excess of blood sugar or sugar in your bloodstream on a regular basis, you're going to start filling those fat cells with stored sugar, right, to use at a later date, right? And that's how people gain fat composition, right? Well, when you're losing fat, you actually have to have a deficit of sugar in the bloodstream in order to get that sugar to be released from the fat cells back into the bloodstream so your body can burn it to function and do its 37 billion chemical reactions every second, right? So the key here is, though, there's a hormone that's required in order to actually convert stored blood sugar, which is in the fat cells, back into your bloodstream blood sugar, right? Well, that hormone actually comes from your liver, right? So in order to trigger these fat burning hormones, you need to have a liver that's functioning optimally. So often our toxic state prevents our livers from working properly, creating these hormonal imbalances. So in a sense, you actually have to be healthy enough to lose weight, right? If your liver's not functioning properly, you're not going to produce the hormone cascade that you need to actually release the stored blood sugar, which is in your fat cells, right, back into your blood sugar so you can burn. Well, in order to actually kind of fight this kind of metabolic syndrome, like, what do we need to do? Well, in our program, basically, there's 4 pieces that have to exist in our experience. So number one is there's got to be there's got to be consistent, regular, accurate testing. So, for example, this is a copy of one of the body composition analyses that we use that is also FDA approved. That gives us an understanding of where the significant problems exist, how are they doing, how are they progressing, and how to lose weight and really keep it off for the rest of a person's life. So one of the things that we look at, and you can see on this test, if you look on the top left, those list of things, towards the bottom, there's something called metabolic age. And we can actually look at metabolically how well a person is functioning relative to their age. So there's people that come in all the time that have a metabolic age that's significantly older than they actually are chronologically. So in essence, they might be 40 years old, but their metabolism might be functioning like a 75-year-old. Right? So in those circumstances, they're going to have a really difficult time actually burning the amount of calories that a healthy, in this example, 40-year-old would burn. It's going to make it very difficult for them to lose weight. The other reason we do this is we can actually look at things like muscle mass and water mass and stuff like that. So I kind of joke with people is that I know if someone were to spend 24 hours with me, I know that they could lose 10 pounds. The scale would show 10 pounds less in 24 hours. But we also know that would be 10 pounds of body fat. We know that I would actually be 10 pounds of water. So what we're not looking for is just weight loss. We're actually looking for composition change. So we got to have accurate testing that tells us that this person is not just losing weight, but they're actually getting healthier. So that's part of how we do that. There has to be, in my experience, genetic testing. So this was part of a study from the Stanford School of Medicine, and basically what they found was that people that were eating according to their genetic profile actually lost 2.5 times more weight than those who were not. Right. So what it basically boils down to is that DNA matters. Right? Not everybody's plate should be looking the same. Not everybody should have the same points. Not everybody's going to be different. So basically, we need to know what ratio of proteins, fats, and carbs that you need, right? So I see times people will come in that are really struggling with weight loss, and their ratios are all off. You know, they're eating too much fat or too much protein or not enough carbs or whatever it might be. And we can actually look now at your DNA and say, okay, you need to have 35% of your calories should come from protein or whatever it might be. And the test will also tell us about what type of exercise is appropriate for your genetic profile. You know, are you a person who needs lower intensity and really long duration, or do you need super high intensity for short duration? So how do we get your body to work the best it possibly can? That's part of the genetic testing that goes along with our plan. So our plans include what we refer to as a metabolic booster meal plan. And what this means is foods that are really geared around low glycemic index and anti-inflammatory. The idea with the metabolic booster meal plan is actually to get your body to heal, right? A lot of times when we've gained excessive weight and we've had enough stress on our system that's caused this problem with our liver, is that we also have a lot of inflammation. So we've really, truly got to get your body to heal and repair itself. So that's part of the meal plans and how that works, and how to get the body not only to recover and normalize your metabolism, but translate that into burning between 2,000 and 4,000 calories per day, which can translate into 20 to 40 pounds of weight loss within the first 6 weeks, right? So it can happen really, really quickly once we get the metabolism working normally again. The programs often include nutritional formulas. So there's 6 different formulas that we use that help support detoxification. And as you know, as many of you probably know, that actually occurs through the liver. Liposomal B12, which has to do with energy, weight management, that helps all naturally kind of level out some of the sugar cravings. A whole food multivitamin and multimineral, omega-3 fatty acids, and probiotics. Probiotics help heal the gut. When you don't have a healthy gut, it's also really difficult to lose weight too. So part of our program, the reason people lose weight, and this might be surprising, is not because of the supplements, right? It's not about prepackaged food. It's not about these magic supplements or some magic shake that only you can get from us. The supplements are there to help support normal, healthy physiology, right? So they're going to help this process move along. So they're there for part of the program, but they're only there from thereafter if someone really finds value in those particular supplements. So the final piece of this puzzle is the support piece, and arguably really the most important piece, right? Making these changes is not easy, right? It's having worked with people, like I said, for 25 years, having someone to hold you accountable and to help you navigate the challenges that you're going to have, right? I can pretty much guarantee you that when a person goes through this program, the problems that you're going to have, I can guarantee you I've already solved. And not just once, dozens and dozens and dozens of times for people. So helping you navigate through those challenges to be most effective is part of what the support is all about. So we literally have daily communication with all of our clients as they go through our program to help really fully embrace these changes and confront some of the challenges and really take back control of their lives and their health future. So as we kind of start to wrap up, is 2020 the time for transformation? We talked about the time is now, right? We have to make those decisions to make changes now, right? So so the 40-day transformation is just that. It's a 40-day program. So this program is really great for someone who wants to just kind of like detox from the holidays, right? It's like, okay, I don't have a bunch of weight to lose. I kind of let things go a little bit through the holidays. All right, I need to focus for a short period of time just to kind of like get all the sugar out of my system. This is a good program for that. People, like I said, who want to lose just a few pounds. You got 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 pounds to lose. This is a good program for something like that. Did you make a resolution to lose weight this year, right? Well, making a resolution is one thing. Well, what's your process? How are you going to do it? Right. So this is a good foundation to kind of provide that information, that structure to really be successful. Some people, they want to get ready for a trip, right? So they know that they're going for spring break somewhere and like, hey, I know I'm going to have to be in a swimsuit and I want to make sure that I'm looking good wherever I'm going, right? So this is the type of category that does really well on the 40-day transformation. We do have other programs in the office that are longer, that are designed for losing more weight, and digging deeper into kind of the health issues and really kind of doing this, right? So the reality is this, right? If someone's had some health challenges for, 5, 10, 20, 40, 50 years, believe me, they're not going to fix in 40 days. It's not going to happen, right? This is a kickstart. This is a kind of a booster kind of program. So, so sometimes longer programs are recommended, but sometimes this is a good start for people. It kind of gives people a little taste of what's going on. So our gift to my gift to you tonight is this. So I really, really believe in rewarding action, and having done this for years, I've definitely learned that information without action is useless. It's really that simple. So tonight, what I know is that procrastination is absolutely the thief of health, right? Don't wait 5 years, 20 years, a year, a month, whatever. Right? It's never too late never too early to start making changes for your health, right? So if you're ready to start your journey, right? If you're ready to take action, say, okay, I know I need to make some changes. Now's my time. The next step is to schedule a one-on-one consultation with the doctors or our metabolic coach. So this consultation, right, it's going to include all of the stuff here, the body composition analysis, which is going to tell us things like your BMI, body fat percentages, hydration levels, visceral fat, metabolic age. It's going to give us a sense, are we dealing with some metabolism issues that need to be corrected? And or are we dealing with some genetic ratios that is more the problem? It'll include a consultation with the doctor. It'll complete a complete health history where we work through everything. And then we're going to give you some custom recommendations to meet your goals of what we really think it's going to take. Now, the consultation is normally $99. However, tonight only, right? This consultation is free. Right? So that is tonight only. Right? Now, how you can actually take advantage of this is real simple. Here's what you got to do. All right, you have to go to our website. Okay, you have to click on the contact button across the top of the screen. Right, you have to fill out the requested information and write T40 webinar in the comments and questions box. As long as you write that in there, you're going to get the consultation for free. Right. So the other option is you can go to our Facebook page and message us with the same information, right? You can send us a message. I'm going to be able to see the timestamp, right? I'm going to be able to see that the T40 webinar, and I'll see your name attached with it. So, so we'll be in contact then on Monday, because we're closed for the rest of the week after I'm done with this webinar. And we'll call on Monday, or we'll get in touch with you on Monday to schedule your appointment, and you'll get that free consultation that's normally $99. But again, you've got to go to the website or the Facebook page. You've got to hit the contact button, or you've got to message us. You got to write the T40 webinar in the comments and questions box, or message us with that information, and make sure, if it's through the Facebook page, and if it's better for us to call you, write your phone number in there, or email address, or however it's best to get a hold of you. But we'll be in contact first thing Monday morning. We'll get your appointments scheduled and stuff like that. Now, for those of you who are going to do that, right, I'm going to give you an assignment. Right. So for those of us, I know there's some practice members that are on this webinar. You know that we're going to give you stuff to do. So the thing I want you to do is I want you to start reducing caffeine, right, in your diet over the weekend, right? And between one day, between now and Monday when we call, I want you to fast in the morning for one day. Meaning I want you to stop eating at 8 p.m. and I don't want you to eat till noon the next day. Right? I want you to do that once between now and Monday. Okay? So those are your two assignments. I want you to start, if you're drinking coffee or sodas or whatever it is, I want you to start to reduce the amount of caffeine in your diet, right? And I want you to fast one day. That's from 8 p.m. in the evening till noon the next day. No food, right? All you can have is water, right? All right. So Again, 2020, it's time for transformation, right? We're at a new decade, right? We have the opportunity to start off new. One of the statistics that I read was that the average New Year's resolution only lasts till January 17th. Most people have failed on their New Year's resolution by January 17th. Now, how do you change that? Well, some accountability, right? Have some coaching, right? And it's not about like being down on ourselves, right? Almost nobody succeeds the first time, right? I was listening to this wonderful podcast earlier this week. They were talking about how do people go from good to great? What's the difference? One of the things is relentlessness, right? Is that never give up, right? Just keep going, right? Knock down 7, get up 8, right? That relentlessness, unwilling to give up on what the objective is, right? So use that going into that. Use your resources. It's not a bad thing to have help and support. It's necessary. We're not going to make this trip alone in life, right? We need some help. So reach out. If this is a program you're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I like the DNA piece and all that. We have programs, the 40-day transformation with and without DNA tests. We have longer programs that can help really dig in that. The consultation will go through all of that. We'll make your recommendations. You'll be able to pick what works for you. We have all kinds of different payment plans and all that kind of stuff. So don't let that get in the way of making some of these changes. So that's all the slides I have for you guys. If anybody has any questions, please go ahead and enter them in the group chat. I'm happy to answer them that way. And I'll talk about them as they come up if anybody has any questions. Would love to hear something. Nothing so far. So, oh, you are so welcome. I'm glad you can make it. All right. Good. So just a reminder, go to our website and make sure you hit the contact button. If this is kind of the program you want to take advantage of, and especially the contacts. A question, what if you're already on the program? Great question. Then what we want to do is we just want to make sure we do during one of your success visits. We want to talk about some of the common things that either you're struggling with or what we need to do to kind of boost the results and stuff like that. So just kind of recommitment, maybe some different goal setting and stuff like that. So great question, Garnet. So have you already scheduled your next success visit? Okay, yeah, so let's make sure we schedule that in the next week or two and make sure things are sailing along. So I know you've done amazing. You know, I can really see it, how much weight you've lost. So you're just doing fantastic. So excited for you. You know, it's not every day that someone can actually look at year after year or go from year to year and say, I actually am truly healthier than I was a year ago, right? And having worked with people for a couple decades now, you know, it's so fun to listen to people say, you know, people that I worked with, you know, 20 years ago, what they're seeing now is that all of their friends are losing their health, right? That they're having all these health issues, and those patients are they're just not having any issues. Like, I don't have any of those problems, right? I'm not on a bunch of medications. I can walk, I can travel, I can do whatever I want to do. And it was because they made a commitment to themselves and to their health early on in life. And now they're reaping those benefits, right? The cool thing about nutrition is you don't have to wait 20 years to get the benefits, right? You actually get them like day one. Like you really get the payoff along the way, right? The energy and the vitality and all of those things that go along with it. So I'll leave it open for just another minute or so to answer any additional questions if anybody has anything. Good. All right. Well, I hope you all had an amazing holiday, and I am looking forward to kicking off the new year with everybody. And look forward to meeting you in the office for those of you that are ready to take control and take some action. And if now's not your time, keep us in mind. We would love to help you. And we'll hopefully touch base with everybody real soon. Have a great evening. And for those of you that are interested, we'll talk on Monday. Have a good night.